Good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching the show. This is Senior Issues, etc. I'm your host, Clint Herdegen. Hurry up, go and get your coffee, tea, beer, Dr. Pepper, whatever. Come and sit down because this one's for you. We have an interesting show for you again. We try to keep you updated on what's going on in our community, what's happening around us, how do we have to adapt in this fast-moving, changing world that we live in. And I have an interesting person, and you're going to want to really pay attention to the information that he's going to bring forth to us. This show emanates from Libertyville, Illinois, and who I have with us today is the Chief of Police, and his name is Clint Herdegen. And we're so happy to have you here today, Chief.
Thanks very much for having me.
And so the routine is here that they want to know the guts about you. You know, who is this person that they're seeing right now? So they're going to want to know the lowdown. So first of all, let's begin with where were you born?
Oh, geez, I was born in Fort Carson, Colorado. I was an Army brat. My father was stationed in Fort Carson, 52 years ago, and that's where I was born. Shortly thereafter, my parents moved back to Chicago, where my mother was raised, and we lived there for about 4 years, and eventually moved out to the suburbs of Chicago, out to Prospect Heights, Illinois, which is where I grew up.
Mm-hmm. And then where did you go to school?
I went to school in Arlington Heights, grade schools in Prospect Heights, of course, and then high school, I went to Hersey High School in Arlington Heights, and eventually after high school, I went to Harper Junior College, where I started taking classes in law enforcement.
And then when did you get married, if you're married?
I am married. I'm married to my wife, Sharon, and I have 3 lovely kids that are, in fact, 2 of them are going to Harper College as we speak. And
well, I want you to look right into that camera there and give a big smooch. You need to give 4, 1 for your wife and 1 for each kid. Look right into that.
Hi, honey. Nice to see you.
You blow it to them.
I love you, and I love all the kids as well. And,
give 3 more.
1, 2, 3.
Okay. Well, that's good. So then you went to work for the police department when?
I went
Way back.
I started my career with the police department in Hoffman Estates in 1981. So I've been a police officer for over 30 years now. I worked 29 years in Hoffman Estates. Started out as a patrol officer there, driving around in a squad car on the streets, much like you see the police officers here in Libertyville doing. Became a detective and a tactical officer and a training officer and eventually a sergeant, and worked my way through the ranks there all the way until the last 12 years I was the police chief in Hoffman Estates as well.
Then when did you come to be the chief of Libertyville Police Department?
I came to Libertyville in October of 2010, so I've been here a little over a year and a half.
And why don't you tell our audience a little bit about Libertyville?
Oh.
The population.
Sure.
And where we're located.
Yeah, Libertyville is located central Lake County area, right off of Route 21, which is Milwaukee Avenue. The population in Libertyville is about 22,000 people, a little over 9 square miles. It has great amenities here. One of the things that I really enjoy about Libertyville that intrigues me because I didn't have that opportunity so much where I came from is that you have just a wonderful downtown area here in Libertyville, a nice downtown feel to it. Real friendly community. Everybody knows everybody here.
Well, we have a village, and what we have is a well-equipped village. We have a village that, has like the heart center of it, So I feel the same way.
Yeah, it's a real nice hometown feel here in Libertyville.
Right. So let's get right into the police department. I know that you have seen the changes come about within the last 30 years. Now, what is the biggest crime area that the police, even more than Libertyville, across the nation is dealing with right now?
Well, obviously it depends on if you're coming from a large, major urban area like Chicago or a suburban area like Libertyville or the towns surrounding us. Of course, many of the people that live in our community now will say that traffic is our #1 problem because Milwaukee Avenue and some of the other major thoroughfares are so crowded. And of course, we're trying to deal with those traffic-related issues. I'm a big proponent of traffic and highway safety, and I think you'll see over the next few months here, IDOT is completely rebuilding the intersection at Route 21 and Route 137, which is going to, of course, be an inconvenience for a number of months, but we're going to do our best to try and keep traffic moving there. And then I think when that intersection is complete, you'll see it's going to be a lot bigger and a lot safer to move throughout that intersection. That's on the traffic and highway safety side, but of course,
on the crime side.
On the crime side, we're very similar to many other suburban communities, and we're dealing a lot with crimes of opportunity. For example, I still find it hard to believe, although times have changed certainly since you and I were growing up in our little neighborhoods, where we felt like we didn't have to lock our homes or our car doors or anything like that. But there are a lot of people in this area and other suburban areas that still leave their homes unlocked, leave their cars unlocked with valuables inside like laptops or purses or change or iPods or cell phones in plain view, and that creates a crime of opportunity. So unfortunately, we have a certain element of our society and our community that goes driveway to driveway and trying to shake the doorknobs on cars and homes and seeing what valuables that they can take out of there. So,
well, one of the things that we discussed before the show, you being in your 50s and me approaching 80, is that we've had the most life experiences, with our maturity, but we've had different life experiences, and that's one of the things that I was talking about with you. That's true. I've had a life, but when I was younger, I didn't have to deal with this, how I was raised, locking doors or paying that much attention to it. And unfortunately, I am one that's had to come into the 21st century with all the technology, and the part of it I came in like screaming and yelling, and was stubborn against the computer, but now I am computerized a lot more. But there's a lot of seniors that just stay in a time warp.
Well,
that's what I call it.
You might call it a time warp. I'm going to say that you're a very trusting age group because of how you grew up.
You call it trusting, I call it ignorant. And that's what I try to do, is get information to knock some of those ignorant walls down so that seniors can sharpen up a bit.
Well, that's true. I'm not going to say they're ignorant.
Yeah, I can, because I am one.
You can. But you're right that they do need to pay attention to the advice that's given to them, pay attention to the changing technology, and use it if you can. You want to, like you said, you're using computers now. I think you should. That's the way of the world now, and it's changing again for my kids. It's a lot different for my kids than it was for me. Sure, of course. And the same with law enforcement. 30 years ago, we didn't have computers in our police cars. We didn't have video cameras in our police cars. The radios that we use now are much more sophisticated and better, and provide a much better tool for the police officers. And they all have the laptops in their squad cars now, so we have access to immediate information if we need it, and we're video recording almost everything that we're doing from our police cars. Yeah,
well, like we were talking about, somebody will watch a couple of shows on CSI, which is a scripted, fictitious show. It's not reality. And they're basing it on some truths of what's happening, but they have the beginning and the outcome, and that doesn't happen in real life. And like you were saying, what takes, within a half hour, they have it all solved and
That's right.
processed.
Sometimes when a victim of a crime is reporting a crime, they expect us to solve it in a half an hour or 45 minutes or an hour because
they see it on TV.
That's what they saw happen on TV. The reality is, the technology is way, way better today than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. We have a lot more tools and technology and advancements in the way we process evidence available to us today, but we can't do it in an hour. And in many cases, it takes weeks for us to get information back about evidence that we might have obtained during processing a crime scene. That's different than the expectation the community has because of what the TV shows are showing them. And the technology that you're seeing in TV shows like CSI or NCSI or those police or crime shows, the technology you're seeing there will get here eventually.
But it's not here now.
It's not here now. Some of it is.
Yeah.
For example, let me talk about DNA.
Well, we'll talk about that in the next segment, okay?
Sure.
Because right now what it's time for is what I call Vita's Pearls of Wisdom. There's a couple things, I always have you in mind. I love all of you out there, and I want you to live forever. That's our goal. We've talked about this before, and so we have to pay attention to certain things. Number one, I want to talk about driving. Now, I'm approaching in the next month or two my 80th, and I'm going to have to take a driving test every year. One of the things that I have done since, I've had so much problems with my eyes, not during the daytime, at nighttime, so I do not drive at night. And what I've done is I do take medication. It isn't a real dangerous medication, but I am on medication. So I don't drive long distances like I used to do, driving trips to Florida all the time. I don't take long trips. I just drive locally, and I've sort of like curved my driving patterns to my age and what my own limitations are. And we all have to put a check on what our limitations are and be able to check it. Should I drive the next 2 years? How much should I drive? What do I have to pay attention to? So I want you to pay attention to that. And since this is being filmed in the springtime, this is a time for spring cleaning. Now, so many accidents, and last show I did, we talked about fire prevention, and fires happen, around the stove. I can't believe people storing newspapers in their oven and then turning their old newspapers on, but that's what the fire chief told us. But I want you to go around your house. Now, I do have a plate in my leg, so my house, has been gone through, and I don't have any chairs with casters on the bottom. I don't use ladders at all. I rely on my friend to get me something on a higher shelf. And the thing that I have found that most people do not do, and this is a thing to pay attention to, if you have little rugs in your bathroom, first of all, make a path from your bed to your bathroom, that it's an absolutely clear path, that if you have to get up at night and go to the washroom, that there isn't something that you could trip over. Second, if you don't have those little rubbery things that connect your little rug to the floor and it could slip, either get rid of those rugs or see that it's properly fashioned down. And if you have like little area rugs around another rug, either get rid of those or see that they're attached in such a way that your foot can't slip underneath it and you could take yourself. Because what we have to practice at our age, remember, we're the first generation that has lived this long, so we have to practice a lot of preventative accidents. And by taking these extra little steps, we're extending our life, and what we're doing is preventing some kind of miserable fall where we break our hip or our leg in some way. And a little carpet in front of the sink, you have to watch for that. And see the traffic flow where you're walking, where your chair that you sit, and where your coffee table, that you don't bump and hit the end of. And do this to the end of your apartments. And all those extra little doodads or those extra little things, don't wait till you die that your kids could inherit. Give it to them now and downsize and live yourself a more comfortable life, because this is the way we have to do. we don't have a roadmap in front of us of a group of people that have lived this long, so we have to figure all these things out for ourselves. So I want you to take care of yourself, because, you know, God bless you, I love you, and do all these little things, you live longer. Now we're going to get back to DNA. Is that right, Chief?
Yeah, we were talking about DNA, and I was saying that 10 and 20 years ago, it took us a long, long time to get information when we were collecting DNA and submitting it for evidence. And so that's one of the advancements to technology, is we can, the processing of DNA has come a long way, and so we can get that information a lot quicker. Not a half an hour, not an hour, but within a several weeks time frame, we can come up with that kind of information.
And remember that, you know, the shows are a half hour, but they're fictitious. But reality is a lot longer. So we have to keep all these things in mind. Another area that I'd like us to go into is the telephone scams, because there are a lot of them.
Yep, seniors should be particularly aware, because I think you're an age group that is targeted by people that are using telephone scams to fish for information. So I'm going to give you a couple of points about that.
Okay.
First of all, your bank and your credit card company are not going to call and ask you for your bank account number, or your routing number, or your checking account number, or your credit card number.
Or your Social Security.
Or your Social Security number. They already know that information. You've provided them with that information when you filled out your application to join that bank or participate with that credit card. They already know it. So if someone's calling you up and saying, I want to confirm that I have the correct credit card number for you, or there's been some unusual activity on your credit card account, would you give me the account number so that I could verify that I'm speaking with the right person? Or, hi, this is your bank calling. There's been unusual activity on your bank account. Would you please verify your bank account information? I want a red flag to go off for you in those types of circumstances. We talked a little bit before about how you're a very trusting group of people. But I like to also say that you have more life experience than anybody. And if you have a gut feeling that something's wrong with the question that somebody's asking you over the phone, you shouldn't answer it. A better choice would be find out who's calling you. Can I have your name and your phone number? I want to call, and then once you have that person's name and phone number, then call your bank. Call the main number for the bank and say, I'd like to speak with this individual. They were calling me and asking me for information about my bank account. And you're going to find out right away that in most cases, that was a bad phone call, that somebody was fishing for your personal information.
So we should always ask questions. Is that right, Chief?
Always be skeptical.
Always be skeptical.
If your gut is telling you that something's wrong, trust your instincts. And then ask questions. Who am I speaking with? What's a phone number where I can call you back? And then what company are you working for? And then if they say I'm working for your bank or I'm working for your credit card, then call that, hang up with them, say I'll call you back, and call your banking establishment and or your credit card company and find out if it's true that somebody should have been calling you.
I've gotten several calls. The last call I got is that my name was picked in a lottery and I won $500,000, but in order to process this claim, I would have to send a cashier's check in for $500. But there's all different versions.
That's right, all different versions of that scam. And what does your gut tell you about that? What do your instincts tell you about that?
That it's a joke.
It's a joke, that's right.
It's crazy. It's too good to be true.
It's too good to be true. And they're doing that not only over the telephone, they're doing that by text. And I know some of your seniors text because my father texts me. They're going to receive texts that are asking for that kind of information, emails to your email account asking for that kind of information. And the vast, vast majority of those are scams. Unless you have filled out sweepstake information where you might be participating in a publisher's clearinghouse sweepstakes. But again, if they call you back, what you should do is get a name and contact number and follow up through a main phone number for that organization.
Another area I'd like us to go into a little bit, you were talking about ruse.
Ruse burglaries, yes.
Well, explain what ruse burglary is, first of all.
A ruse burglary is where somebody is trying to trick you or distract you. It's really a crime of distraction. What's happening in these particular...
It's a hustle.
It's a hustle is what it is, sure. And
now, how does that work?
seniors are being particularly targeted for these crimes as well, again, because you're a very trusting group. So here's what happens. You might be out in your driveway or inside your home, and somebody will knock on your door and say, I'm from a utility company, or I'm from a tree service company, or I'm a roofing company, a siding company, something along those lines.
Something that you would need.
Something that you would need, or even in some cases they're saying, I'm going to be trimming the trees in your neighbor's yard, or I'm going to be repairing the fence in your neighbor's yard. Would you walk back to the back of the house with me just to make sure that I'm not going to do something that's on your property? And then you'll follow them to the back property line or the side of your house, and when you walk out the front door, they have somebody else that slides in your front door, the same door you came out of, your front door, and will run up into your bedroom and take your jewelry and your money and your valuables, your electronic equipment, and be out within a minute or two. Then they'll call the person that you're speaking with and say, I have everything I need, and that person will say, okay, so are you okay with what I'm going to do with the fence? You're going to say, that's fine, you're not impacting my property, and they leave. And when you go back in the home, it might not be until you go up to bed that night when you realize that that valuable property has been taken.
So you really have to be aware. That's a real tricky one.
It is, but it's
They have all different stories, but it works
all different stories
on this type of principle that you're distracted, and while you're distracted, somebody else is doing the crime.
That's right. And so, that's a particular situation where your gut might not tell you, well, what's wrong with this? He wants to show me what he's going to do to my neighbor's fence. That's why we're talking to you about it now.
Right.
We want you to understand that a red flag should go off for you.
Because you've heard about this now. Another area is, when there's big, like, celebrations, and it takes in either a game or some sort of event, large event, where there's a whole lot of people. There's so much pickpocketing going on.
Sure.
How can you safeguard? What are the safeguards that we should be aware of?
Well, as far as pickpocketing goes, if you have the opportunity to not bring your purse with you into a crowded area, if you can lock it in the trunk of your car or leave it home, but I know that there's some cases where you have to take it with, you should have the kind of purse that will have a long strap on it, that you could put it over your shoulder, and make sure that it has a mechanism for closing so that the bag is not just open, that somebody could reach in there and take your wallet out of your purse.
And don't have it strapped that it goes to your back. Have it in front of you.
That's right. Have it in front of you where you can keep your arm on top of it. And same with the gentleman. They should keep their wallet on the inside pocket of their jacket if they can. Of course, the trunk of their car if they can do that as well. Remember, don't leave things in plain view where you create a crime of opportunity as well. But I want to mention one quick thing about the ruse burglaries is how do you deal with that?
Oh, how do you deal with it?
So we didn't talk about how you deal with it.
Oh, right.
So when that red flag goes off, I want you to say, no, thank you. If you need to go look in the backyard, feel free to do so. I don't need to be here. And then go call the police.
Oh, that's
a
good idea.
Go inside and call 911 and say, I think I'm being scammed. I think somebody's trying to distract me. If you can get a license plate in from off of the vehicle that's in the driveway, the license plate number, do that. Try and remember the description of the people that you're dealing with, how many of them there are. There's going to be always 2, maybe 3 or 4. But you want to try and pay attention to those kind of things. But don't let them in your house. Even if they say they have to use the bathroom, don't let them in your house. Even if they say, can I use your phone, don't let them in your house. Nobody should be coming to work on your house unless you've called them to come and work on your house. You know if you need a new roof. You know if you need new siding. You know if you want to have your driveway sealed, your asphalt sealed. You make those calls. You be the proactive one to call, do some research on companies that will come and do that kind of work for you. But don't let people just walk up and knock on your door and try and sell you that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's good. That's good information, Chief. Another thing I think we might mention that I know every police department, we don't have all the numbers, have an emergency number, and then they have a non-emergency number, right?
Yes.
So if anybody's in doubt, they just have to look at whatever community they live in the front of their telephone book should be a non-emergency number, that if people are in doubt of something, they should call that non-emergency number, right?
I'll take it a step further. I'm
Okay.
going to suggest to you that if you're in doubt of whether or not you should call the non-emergency number, just call 911 and let us deal with it that way.
Oh, just call 911. That's even easier.
It's
yet.
easy. You don't have to look up a number in a phone book. It doesn't matter if you're in Libertyville or Vernon Hills or Mundelein.
The 911
Call
number
911.
goes across everything.
That's correct. So it's the quickest way to get information, and it's also the quickest way to get help if you need it.
Now, I know that you have really more than 30 years service in with the police department. And exactly where does your passion lie? What kind of gratification do you get out of your job? Or you have a crew, right? You have a crew of policemen that
Sure.
are you're the authority over them, right?
Mm-hmm. There's 39 police officers in Libertyville.
And what kind of gratification are you getting back personally?
Well,
what is it doing for you, in other words?
It gives me an opportunity to help people. And in this case, when you get to be the chief of police, you get to have some influence, albeit not that very much, but you get to have some influence on the direction that the police department is headed, right? And so in Libertyville, we're about community policing, we're about traffic and highway safety, and I want our police officers to be out there and doing a good job for the community and helping the community. That's what we're all about.
Oh, so that's the kind of gratification you're getting. So your job is still interesting, it's enjoyable for you, and it's a fun. You get some fun out of it. I know you get to see a lot of good things, that you get to see a lot of bad things. How do you cope with that?
Well, I think after 30 years, it just becomes part of the job. You know, it's a little bit difficult to deal with early in your career, and it never becomes just second nature. But you learn how to cope with those kind of the bad side of the equation as you go throughout your career. But it's really the rewarding part of the job is helping people. That was one of the questions I was asked when I first became a police officer over 30 years ago. Why do you want to become a police officer? Well, I want to help people. It's still the same answer I'm going to give you 30 years later.
We could go on, but you know what time it is now. When you out there, I'm speaking to you right there, come to the end of your rope, you know what you do? You tie a knot and hang on. You know why? Because the best is yet to come. And you know what we want you to do this week? We want you to catch the spirit.